line. Hopefully. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon's simple-minded projects are some trees. These are kind of a gift shop, craft show kind of a project. Rather simple to do. Kind of monotonous in a way. This one has already been rough turned somewhat. This doesn't have quite as much of a taper on it as what I'd like. So we'll use our friend Askew. Give it a little bit more of a taper. Might need a section back here that's a little bit flat. So we're nice and clean and smooth. Trim off a little bit off of that end. Just so I know right where the end is at. And just so happens I have a pattern that I use. It has little indentations in it. Just to make it easier. Make it a lot easier as long as I don't hit the chuck while it's spinning. It'll be good. There we go. Pretty simple. It's a simple project. Tool rest goes back down. This is a spindle project. It's not really the skew is a nice thing to get it to that shape. But the rest of it is pretty much spindle gouge kind of work. Use both 1/2 inch and 3/8 inch spindle gouges for this work. Just out of curiosity, I want to look at something. Just to make sure we're actually live. Looks like we are, I guess. Like I said, it's strictly pretty much a whole lot of repetitive motion. Tree needs a little ball on top of it. Kind of left myself a little bit more room down there, but we'll deal with it. I use a little parting tool just to give myself a little bit. Takes a little bit less work if I do that. A little left-handed turning to cut underneath the brim. for the, not only the rim, but top part. Right up underneath there. One sort of fail swoop. Half a bead going the other way. Make a tiny little V cut so the parting tool has somewhere better to go. Cut down fairly close to where I need it to be. Once again, left-handed cut. So that we can cut up underneath a little bit. Also gives us a nice clean cut up in there. I'll cut the whole way up underneath the rim, up underneath the bottom of that. Another half a bead. This is definitely the kind of project if you want to become a fairly proficient spindle turner. This is the kind of project for you. They do sell. We're in a couple different places that our stuff is at. This is one of them. I mean, I don't sell them every week, but they do sell pretty much year round. Can work on making things sort of match one another as well. You have to be a little bit careful when you go up underneath there. The last little bit. So we didn't have it far enough back yet. I don't have any way of really giving you that good camera view to try and look up underneath that. But once I get up and underneath there, I'm cutting right on that very tip of the nose, just to the right of the nose. That way it won't dig in. I didn't need to do that. I was going to move my tool rest down, but I decided against that. too big of a cut. Spindle gouging likes to make little cuts. If you get too aggressive with it, it just literally stalls and don't continue to cut. Also, when you make that curve and you're doing the last little bit of the, like up underneath here, you're sort of diving into end grain, and that sort of, you are diving into end grain. So you have to be aware that, especially if you're taking a fairly good sized cut out of there, it could break, sort of break loose, and then you go diving into the bottom of that piece, which could make it exciting. I would view it as making it very unexciting because it generally will break it. Which is definitely not what you want to do. So that's going to be at the very bottom of the tree right there. At which point we'll leave that alone for just a minute. Our tourist out of the road. Make sure everything looks okay. Oh yeah. By the way, did I tell you this is a heavily sanded project? All I'm going to do is touch them corners on each of them because they are cut smooth enough, clean enough. We don't really have to do any more than that. That's the wonders of doing these kind of projects, is to develop muscle memory, skill level. I do not sand any of these at all, just that little bit to take that edge off. Simple finish is going to be beeswax. In this case, it's beeswax. Beeswax with a little bit of mineral oil on it. Just to sort of protect them. It gives them a little bit of the color, the natural color of the wood as well. And we'll just melt that beeswax right in there. And it'll gives it a nice silky smooth texture when you touch them. I don't know that it would necessarily help you with the maybe dust not sticking to it. Might actually do just the opposite. Don't know. They don't stick around at my house. Not something we're overly interested in. So once we have it melted in, I'm going to go over it with a clean bit of paper towel. Remove any excess. Might have. And then we're going to carefully bring a tailstock back. Here's where you can destroy them, for sure. I should have left myself a little bit more room to have done a little bit more of this work before this. One thing I can do is just bring the tip up. It gives it a little bit of support down in there. Ever so slightly, lightweight touch. Not trying to force anything or horse it. Because you can certainly break these. You can give it a little finger support as well. And totally get rid of the life center mark. putting a lot of force on it whenever you're cutting straight across that, like that. Generally speaking, this is one of the places you could actually sand just a little bit, just on that little nub, and make sure it's round. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Should be able to just touch it with the beeswax rag. And we'll bring the tool rest back in. We want to stay away from moving the tool rest when it's moving. Bad things can happen. I might actually have enough room. I left myself enough room, but I can get rid of some of this material. But ideally, I would much rather cut that with the gouge, so I get a nice clean cut up underneath there as well. At least somewhat. It looks like when I need to check that a little bit. I also need that a little bit undercut to go with it. I do have a detail gouge, detail spindle gouge. That's ground at a really long grind. That should allow me to get in there and make that undercut without making contact with the rim, like it did on the first one. Not necessarily worrying about cutting it completely off on there. So get it close, and we'll sand that with the little disc sander on the very bottom of it. And we'll leave myself a little groove out there to cut it off with the little flush trimming saw. There it is, one simple little tree. We'll address that once we're done with all of them, because we have several of them to do. That's the longest or the tallest of the bunch. Put it that way. Quick and easy. Very monotonous. Almost close enough not to fit in the chuck. Like before, a little support for the line center. Tool rest comes up pretty high. Above center. Tool rest is above center to use a skew in planing mode. And you can see they're not very well tapered. Let's grab my pattern once and take a look, see where we're going to be. Yeah. Sometimes I put a square base on them, but I've kind of decided anymore that I don't necessarily like the square base. So we'll just make it tapered from there. All the way down to the point. This time we'll make sure we leave ourselves lots of room. We need the support down there. We just don't need, just needed to not have the issue that we did with the last one. We'll have a little different of an issue with this one if we go the whole way back. As we break the tip of the pencil off. This particular wood is what they call tree of heaven. It has a really very long name, which I can't necessarily even pronounce, but it's sort of spalded as well. So let's establish where our ball is going to be first off. Somewhere thereabouts. Half a bead. On to the left. Should have a place to go with a bead, so we'll cut a little V cut in there. So I have somewhere for it to go to. If you're watching this and you like what you see, be greatly appreciated if you'd hit that cute little button down there. It says subscribe, and like would be just quite nice. Whole lot of repetitive kind of work, but just repetitive kind of work if you're interested in trying to learn to be a wood turner. This is the kind of project that you need to do, and do them a lot so that when you are doing something else in the wood turning, even right down to a bowl, that you have an understanding of how to use the tools, what it takes to make clean cuts, clean, efficient cuts, that you're not spending a whole lot of time sanding. Get it close, make sure we're going to get the size we want for the sort of branch part that sticks out. One nice clean cut to the bottom. If it's not as clean as I want down there, I can use the lower wing and sort of scrape as it comes back along there. Not quite the shape we were looking for. Redefine it a little bit. Little V-cut into there. Just a simple pickup of the parting tool on something like that. Sort of makes it easier. At least it makes it easier for me. Makes it faster, for one. Not quite to the line, so one more cut. Slow and steady. And fade it away to a little bit of nothing until I get to the rim, or the top of the post, I should say. Another half a bead. Half a V-cut. Remove some material. Spindle gouge doesn't like to take the big cuts, so there I was getting a little bit too heavy on the cut, so just back off, reestablish another cut, take it in two passes, rather than trying to make it in one big pass. I guess we'll go to our line. Try not to leave little ripples and waves in there. If you do, it's not the end of the world. Just gives the piece a little bit more character. I guess if I go back to that line, first off, I'm not even quite round back in there. It would have a lot more of a troublesome time. So now let's smooth. So that's going to, yeah, let's do that first. Oh, I will be right back. I teach class and I left my texturing tools over in the other room, so I'll be back in 30 seconds. Like I say, this is kind of one of the things that I'm doing a 4-session class at my local woodcraft. This is one of the things that we would do or try and teach them to do, just because it's repetitive motion, repetitive all the way around where it comes right down to it. This is a knurling tool. It's just going to give us a bit of texture for the base. They really don't cut, they sort of emboss. So I'm putting a fairly good amount of pressure. It's also down at about 450 or 500 RPMs. Looks like it could be a little deeper yet. If I can manage to get it back into the same place. There we go. That's more of the texture that I was looking for. So that takes care of that will take care of the base. And we've got our established where we're going to cut it off at. And while we're at it, touch those little sharp edges. Because when you do this right, those little edges right there are like little razor blades. They're actually sharp enough that if you were to touch one while it was spinning, it would actually cut you. And my rendition of that would be a paper cut on serious steroids. As in kind of the drawing kind of blood kind of cut. And we'll get down into that area. And it'll cut through it. Pick that little knob up because that little knob will always stick you in the foot. It was a little aggressive there. It did leave a little bit of a dimple in there, which I don't want. It'll be easier to do that up there with the bigger parting tool. Back to our wax. Beeswax and mineral oil. And we'll do these a lot of times with a tree branch as well. You do it with a tree branch a lot of times, or some of the time anyhow. I mean, you can get the bark to stay on. You're only going to get like the very bottom one, maybe the bottom two, depending on what the branch looks like. That's what you call very inexpensive free wood, practice wood. I'll even do these when they're fairly wet. Maybe not sopping wet, but plenty of moisture in them. And putting the beeswax and mineral oil like that over top of them sort of seals them up enough that they will usually cooperate and dry without cracking and splitting in half. It just brings out the natural bits and pieces of the wood to go with it. So we need to get rid of some material. This is a different parting tool than that one. That one's getting dull. I'll just get rid of a bunch of material. So I have room to get in there with my spindle gouge, or in this case a detail gouge. So I can make a nice clean cut. The parting tool will not will not make a clean, generally will not make a clean cut in underneath there. I also needed a little bit undercut to go with it. And like I said before, this is what you call a non-sand, no sand kind of a project. So everything gets cut clean and call it a day. This one's got enough room. You can cut it off. Starting to wobble. Still not going to try and cut it off completely at the bottom. Left a little nub, which is fine. Little nub sands off in a matter of a couple seconds. Versus me trying to go underneath and taking that off, chances are it would pull a little bits of the fiber out. And then we'd have a whole different scenario of not being very happy. Why these all sort of look a little bit alike is because I cut up a log and it really didn't do much for me. It had some cracks and whatnot, and I cut around it. So I mean, this is sort of what was left out of a log. Tool rest is not high enough. Skew wants to cut up there at about 11 o'clock, wherever possible. Skew doesn't really like to remove a ton of material at one time either. It's kind of our no-go zone. The question is, just turn it off on this one. This one, This one's going to be more challenging because it's shorter. We'll just put little marks thereabouts. These marks are also, in case you're interested or wondering, if I spin it around, it's probably hard to see on the camera, but what I've done is I come down, whatever, I think 3/4, and then I add a 1/16 of an inch as I go down, so the tree gets, what do you want to call it, wider as it goes, which would be kind of a natural, kind of a pine tree looking type thing. Whole lot of rinse and repeat. Can actually, yeah, I'm saying probably best bet is to actually go to a shorter tool rest. I want to be in close, relatively close to my work. I don't want a bunch of tool overhang on it. It just isn't in our best interest. Yeah, it's getting a little thin there. It's going to be a smaller tree, so thin is good. Simple little V cuts to get down into that area. Just a little bit in the center. Probably about 1/8 of an inch in there, which is really pretty much just enough. First one or two cuts that I make in there, if you're really paying attention, are more of a, just kind of a chamfer kind of a cut, V cut, just to get rid of material. And then we start the movement of swinging the handle and making the cove. It's kind of another repetitive kind of motion. Do these long enough, or enough of them in a row, and find out that you might end up with some sore hips. Because that's how I'm actually manipulating the tool, especially on that half a cove, if my body's involved. It's extra wide. No big deal. We can always take more material off. It's a little hard, a little challenging to put it back. I got a bit carried away there. Thought I was back closer to my line. Just fade that cut away a little sooner. Last cut will go the whole way to the top. Never claimed to be a production senator, so getting more than one of these to look the same is generally not in my vocabulary. They'll all be sort of basically the same shape. Always pays not to run your hand into the chuck as well. Ouch. And last one, that one can remain a little heavier than the rest. I'll go back down here and cut this free. Just a slight bit of pressure. Not the same amount of pressure on the back side as there is on the front side, me trying to cut that. And this one we'll actually have to probably cut it off using the parting tool. I will kind of cheat on this one a little bit. This parting tool is actually grounded at an angle, a slight angle. It actually matches the dovetail on my chuck. What that also means in something in this case is that we have just a very sharp little point sticking up there. So it will give me a fairly smooth cut as long as I make little itty bitty cuts in there against that end grain. Only one time to get that little edge. I guess before we cut it off, I guess I should put beeswax on it. Messed up already. Getting ahead of myself. This chunk of beeswax has mineral oil in it. It's also actually that one actually is very soft. There's more mineral oil in it than maybe what should be. But in a situation like this, it just makes it a little easier. If you were to use pure beeswax in a place like that, makes it pure beeswax is fairly hard, not quite as pliable. So a little bit of mineral oil in there just helps it, softens it up a little bit, a little easier to use for projects like this. But it does have some nice color to it. A lot of variation in the color. Really wish I could get in there, and I might be able to get in just a little ways. Get in there part ways anyhow. At least the outside part of it will be cleanly cut. Get in there about halfway, so that's a plus. This one left a big nub. I can't see it on the camera. It's cleanly cut out here, but that's what the parting tool is going to do in there. Not very, not overly attractive in my opinion, but we will sand that off with a disc sander. After we do one more, there's actually another piece of wood here. Show you a different thing to do with little bits of wood. Over there, this one's the right size. Oh, didn't remember which chuck I actually used to do these. This one actually needs faced off on the end before we go anywhere. We'll do that with, you do that with either any of the tools that we've been using. I use a few. Use a peeling or the peeling cut first. Because it doesn't have to be. Actually, that's all I need to do. Knife center up for a little support. Tool rest comes up a bit. It has a knot in it, so who knows what that'll do. Hopefully it doesn't tear a big chunk out or something. So we'll make our taper. There's that knot. You can feel it. You can feel it in the tool handle that it's thumping. See whether it's tearing it to pieces. Nope. Probably definitely a place that it might lose a piece out of there. Eyes are focused up on top of the piece, up at the horizon, so that we can see what we're doing. See the see the shape develop. So we know we're going to lose that much. after that. Don't need to be pretty right there, but that also left another one of those little cute little razor blades sticking up in the air. Not a whole lot of that knot left. Definitely has a little bit of figure in that area because of the knot. So it's just like the last one. We can't do this with it running, so we'll just mark them thereabouts. We're not worried about it being super exacting. This is not going to be enough to give it. This is going to be a smaller one, so we can give it a base, I guess. So run them lines around. They're not marked quite well enough to see them while it's spinning. A little bit of something for the top. I usually do a little bit of a sort of a ball. Go up underneath the ball. One last cut back across. Into that corner. If you leave a little groove in there, that's a-okay. Alright, somebody texted me a bit ago. Better look see. Probably my wife, knowing her. I guess I forgot to put my lunch in the refrigerator. Whole lot of rinse and repeat. You're doing this kind of work. It must be right where where some of that grain is swirling around, going in every other direction. It wanted to fight a little bit to be cut there. Let's take a look and see. That's most likely. Yeah, this grain is sort of curling around because of that knot. Also give it, won't show very well on the camera, but also gave it a little bit of a figure in there. It's interesting. It's going to be right in the middle of the knot where the next one will be. So we want to take our time a little bit more so on this one, because we have things going in opposite directions. More like multiple directions. It's kind of the max of pushing the max a little bit on that little parting tool. And you go in fairly deep with only one single cut. I did leave a little bit there. Left a little chip there. Okay. Tree. This kind of giving me kind of a weird harmonic too, which is kind of strange. Also, it doesn't work when you don't close the flute once it's escaped. That means when the flute's not totally closed, this bottom corner gets a hold first instead of the very tip. As you can see, it doesn't work very well. Ever so gently go across there. I thought I said I was going to do something different. You can try, I guess. Could maybe leave a base on this. You get the eraser out and erase some of my little oopses there. So I don't get carried away on what I'm doing. Forget to sand them sharp corners off. It's a pain to do it after the fact. Not that you can't do it after the fact, but it's just a little bit more troublesome. That's that little guy here. We'll just give him a little bit of a trunk. At least that's going to be the plan. But I want it to be cleanly cut. No texture like I did there. The part that's not going to be overly cleanly cut will be in there in the trunk. At least I don't think. No, can't get in there. I won't be able, once I get in there, I won't be able to do anything with it. So we'll just, this is a nice sharp parting tool. We'll just be extra gentle. Just a little bite. And of course I undercut that so I can't get into that corner. So we use the one with an angle. Just to slide into that corner. Let's see whether it did what I wanted it to do. That's not too bad. Certainly livable. So we need to know where it's going to get cut off at. If it's going to be as close to the truck as I'm willing to get. Going to have to be a little bit wider than the parting tool, else it will bind in there. And we might as well slow things down. Might as well give it a bit of texture. Okay, that works. Probably if we were so minded. I do have my markers here, and I think I do have a brown one, which I do. Can't say that I've ever quite done it that way. These are my markers that I would use for turning tops and things like that. Just go back up to speed. And we'll just come across there, nice and gentle. So it should just color the tops and leave the white specks below it. Like I said, I've never done it quite that way, so we'll see what happens with the, when you put the beeswax on, whether it'll smear it or not. Hopefully not. We are a water-based marker. Instead of doing it that way, I know how to do it with the tops. I'll just use a little bit of carnauba wax on that, just on that section. That'll seal that up. And then we put the beeswax on everything else. It'll be interesting to get in there, but should have enough wax in there to be able to get in underneath that. Or not. Can't get my finger in there. That's half the problem. Make sure I got it the whole way in. Pairs that we did. They were golden. I didn't go over any of that with with the where I put the carnauba. And about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to give it a little support. All I'm doing is putting my hand there. I'm not trying to put any force on it, just so it doesn't drop to the floor, drop down on the lathe bed. Tree with a little bit of color at the base. Kind of an interesting concept. Can't say that I've ever done that one, but it did work. Worked pretty well, actually. So that's 4 trees and 1 piece left. One fairly little bit fatter piece. The other thing I make a bunch of, other than the dumb trees, would be mushrooms, because people seem to like the mushrooms as well. I mean, that blank there would actually be long enough to do a tree. Just trying to think whether I need any mushrooms. Maybe we'll do a tree. It's got some cracks in it, so we'll just do it into a tree. I need to get underneath them. Yeah, we'll try it. So first order of business, space off the end. And we're not doing such small, fine detail work. I will switch to a bigger spindle guide for this. Ooh, that's a little out of wonky. Live with that. I just want to clean up the very inside here. So I can bring up the tailstock. And we'll be sitting on something nice and true in there. Like I say, this stuff wasn't exactly dry when I did the work to start with. Go back to my bigger tool rest as well. So first order of business, we'll true it up. See what it's going to take to get underneath of that stuff right there. And then we'll go from there. You can hear those cracks. Noise canceling mic will cancel them right out, but you can hear it when I went across there. You can hear it ticking, which is a telltale sign that there's something there. So it feels like there's something picked out right in there. It might be one of those. That's one of those. That little crack is quite deep. Yeah, kind of looks like a tree is what it's going to be. Just to be able to get. I'm not a fan of the things with big hairy cracks in them. I just think it doesn't look nice. And why'd you move this whole rest down, dummy? And we'll just start our taper. See if we get underneath these cracks. Still one there. Getting lighter. That should have taken care of it, hopefully. Not quite. Almost. Should be one more shot of it. I don't feel it. Doesn't mean it's not there. A little bit of brown streak, but that's, we can live with that part. I'll straighten this up a bit back here. Back to our trusty little template. Leave ourselves some room down there. So there would be the end. And it looks good because I don't. The next one's too far back. It'd be the whole way back there. You can look at it when you get there. The lines are there just to keep me in line with what keep my brain on track of what we're doing. And we're gonna go back to the small tool rest. Up close and personal. 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch away, if you care. There's our end spot. And yes, I am not afraid to put the bevel of the tool onto the live center. That's why my live center is nice and shiny. Little bead, little V, a bead going back the other way. There's daylight between the point and the cone part of the live center, so I don't. There should be enough room. A little spaceship looking thing. I thought it felt like it was just a shade on the low side. I don't want to be under center at any time. Do the undercut. Last cut wants to be nice and clean and smooth. And we'll go the whole way up underneath there so it makes contact. Couple little V. You didn't notice I do sort of 2 or 3 little V cuts in there first, just to get rid of the bulk of the material. Kind of less dangerous than to try and start to swing the cove. As I said earlier, if you like what you see, why didn't my speech chat talk to me? Hi guys. Huh. I use a speech chat and it doesn't seem to be talking to me today. My apologies. Welcome. That's weird. Modern technology. If you like what you see, help an old man out a little bit and smash that subscribe button and the like button as well. Undercut the previous one. I'm not a left-handed person, but that is a left-handed cut. Relatively scary for somebody that's very new at this. You tell them to do something with their opposite hand. Most people are not necessarily comfortable using their non-dominant hand to do things. So this will be one that we'll just cut it off. Or my wife would probably tell me I get carried away on something new. I kind of like the last one that has a little base with a little color on. So We'll do the same thing here. So let's figure this out before we get carried away. I need to cut off back in about there. So I can widen this out a bit more. Not getting a very nice sliding cut across there. Worst case scenario, I could actually sand that a little bit in there. Not what I particularly care to do, but so definitely clean cut this part up here. I left this one big enough. Get my little trusty little spindle gouge in there. On its side, and I'm using the lower wing to slice across there. Probably could actually, I think I did that with a parting tool. Did. Do the same thing with this lower branch. Teeny tiny little cut down into the bottom. Erase our pencil line. Get rid of the sharp corners. Just gives it a little bit of a chamfer in there. Drop our speed way back. These knurling tools do not have a bearing in them, so 500 RPMs or less is where they want to be. Should give us a nice knurled texture. Quick and easy. Kind of things I like. Simple, quick, easy. Give it a little color. Marker's brown. Really just trying to graze across the surface. I want to leave the white, and you can see the white stayed. A little carnauba wax over top of that one. Watch what I'm doing. I'm gonna get carried away. Tailstock already started to back away down there. You get some of it comes back off. They are water. I think that one's water based. So it gives it a, I don't know, gives it kind of a neat little texture, I think. Learn something new every day in this adventure. We need to finish cutting off this up here though. As you can see, when you relieve all the stresses in the wood, no longer spinning even remotely true. So I won't even try and cut the end of that one. I'll just sand a little bit there. Not the end of the world. Knock the sharp corners off everywhere. It's something you need to be aware of, especially when you get this sort of figured out on some of this stuff, cutting wise. Why things become sharp, as in sharp enough to cut your fingers. Take it from me, it's not an overly nice experience. It is a paper cut, basically a paper cut on steroids. I guess if there's a good thing with it is you don't even really feel it cut you. You just kind of feel a little bit of a tug on your finger or hand or whatever, and the next thing you know, there'll be blood dripping onto the floor or somewhere else, which is a bad thing for me. I do not get along very well with the sight of my own blood. So I go back over the beeswax, sort of polish, gets rid of any of the excess, because there is some excess there, we just saw. And we're just about done with this one. This one we will just part it. Probably have to part this one the whole way off. I don't think, I don't, no, I can get in there. Not enough to worry, to even try it. If I take nice little cuts, this is a square parting tool, rather than the diamond shaped ones, which I don't like. Show you here in a second what I'm talking about. Cut it off long, just in case it decides I want to pop something out. And that'll be tree number 5, and we'll take off the bottom. What I was going to say, this is a square parting tool. This is Thompson lathe tools. Um, when you grind these sharp, these edges, these upper wings, upper whichever one, that will actually scrape on the end grain. So that last cut in there, I make a very, very small cut, like 30 of an inch, and I also put a little bit of force up against the side so that this is scraping down along there. It'll give me a cleaner cut. It will not be a clean cut. It will not be a gouge kind of a clean cut, but it will be cleaner than just going straight in with a parting tool like you would any other time. So all left to do with these is to finish off the bottom. Bottom is just going to be just a disc sander. little disc sander in there. I'll take off that last little bit on the bottom and call it a day. Tool rest completely out of the road. See if I can clean that. Doing some work with some hybrid kind of work. They're over in the other room where it was epoxy and wood and epoxy. So when you go sanding any of that stuff, it just likes to clog up the sandpaper like right away. So we left a little nub on there. It's just a matter of going right up against the edge of the sanding disc. And I probably should have a little dust collection for such things. Just a nice light touch. This is one of the few projects that I don't necessarily get too hung up on the bottom of them. I certainly wouldn't leave a big dimple or anything like that in there. Just sit them on there. Make sure that I've already undercut them, as in the rim. This rim is higher than what the center is, so they will, no matter what they do as far as the changing of seasons, they will not leave. They will still sit flat on the table. I do try and remove all that, the remnants of that in there. Good. Anything left to do with them is put a little bit of beeswax on the bottom of them. Whatever reason, I've decided here lately that I should actually put my initials on them, so I won't do that until I go over there and use the trusty pyrography pen. Let's see, let me show you the whole group of 5, I think. There we go. Not quite in the frame the way it should be. Back that way a little bit. Nice simple little project. So we've been at it for what time did we start? Oh, I started at, wow, that's an hour and 40 minutes. I'm messing around, talking too much in between. But there you have it. Like I say, if you like what you see, please hit that like and subscribe. If not, we might be back another day. My normal day for me would be a Sunday evening at 6 o'clock Eastern time. Um, you know, don't drop the keyboard. You hit a whole bunch of things on that one. But that's not to say that I won't keep trying this out at, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because a lot of times I am down here working. So until next time, everybody have a good evening and a good week. Until next time, we'll see you later.